I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 56. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Velocity Work Podcast. Okay, we're just going to get right into it today. This is a geeky episode. The title of this episode is The Root Cause of Your Distractions. And if you are not the kind of person who is like me, where you just enjoy and spend your time learning and digging and creating more awareness around optimization of you as a human. And I don't mean that in a way where you're just a robot and you have the life, you just allow the life to be sucked out of you because you're accomplishing so much. No, that's not what I mean at all. Actually, quite the opposite. What I mean is, if you're interested in becoming the kind of person that honors their word, they say they're going to do something and they follow through with it, and they control their time, they control their schedule, they control the results that they get in their firm and for their life, then what's fascinating is that you have to learn how to operate in a way that will deliver those things. And most people think if they just suck it up, close their eyes, and barrel through the things they have to do, then they'll get to the other side and they'll be glad and they can take a breath. Sometimes that works, but there is a huge cost to doing it that way. And there is a better way, my friends. It's not necessarily easier because it does require, you have to stop and you have to think and you have to pause and you have to be curious about how you are operating so that you can optimize things. And that is actually That requires more effort than it does to just close your eyes and barrel through it and see where you land. And you will probably be impressed with your results to some extent, but you are capping yourself because what you're relying on is willpower. And willpower only goes so far before you burn out, hit a wall, you miss things. It's typically more of a chaotic experience. Things fall through the cracks. And there's a better way to do it. And I love learning and geeking out about that. If you have listened to me in the last 6 months, if you've been in tune with the podcast, if you've been on my email list, you know I've been working very diligently with attorneys who run their own firms, specifically, on how to operate in a way that will allow results to continue to unfold for yourself, where you are in control of your time. You are in control of your schedule. You are in control of the results that you get. You make a plan and you honor the plan. And to so many people, that sounds like a pipe dream, and it isn't. But it's hard to do that when you are caught up in the busyness and the day-to-day of things and you aren't the expert. You don't have a guide. You don't have someone who's saying, hey, here's what to pay attention to. Here's where you're going to start. Then here's the next level, the next level, the next level. That's where I come in. And that has been really proven to be very helpful for the attorneys I've worked with in the last 6 months, is like, let's get to the root issue of why you are experiencing things the way you're experiencing things, and why you aren't getting the results you want, and why you're getting the life sucked out of you on this journey of growing your own firm. There's a better way to do it. I think it's helpful to start this off by reminding you that any action you take is either on the path towards the result you want, or it isn't. There is no in between. It is either on the path of the result that you want, or it isn't. It is either on the path of traction, or it's on the path of distraction. So I think simplifying it down to that can be very helpful as you're considering the concepts that we're going to talk about today. Another way to say this is distraction stops you from achieving your goals. Traction leads you closer to your goals, period. And so any action you take is either on one path or another. So it's important to be very aware of what actions you're taking and being very aware of what path it's putting you on in any given moment. Now, there are cues in our environment, external environment, that can either prompt action towards, on the path of traction towards our goals, or prompt action down the path of distraction. So knowing that can be very helpful. And you all, I'm sure, if you've listened to this podcast, you've set up things, sort of cues in your environment to trigger you getting busy with something that you really want to, or it's like setting an alarm or whatever. So there's different cues you can have in your environment that will prompt action that you would like to take. And I'm not going to go into this podcast with those. I'm going to focus on the cues, not just from your environment, but also internal cues that take you off the path that you desire to be on, that take you out of traction and into distraction. That is what we're talking about today. Now, some of this is a recap on things I've mentioned before, but I'm going to give a bit of a recap to give context in this episode. Cues, whether in your environment or just an internal cue that happens, that is, you will experience a response to that cue when the kind of cue that would put you on a path of distraction. That's what I'm talking about right now. Your response to that is where all of your power lies. So it's almost recognizing that there is this cue that's happening and you experience an urge to like go do the distractive thing. And this is where you have a choice. You can either stay with that urge, allow the urge, experience the urge fully, like actually internally experience that urge. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But when you allow it and you don't answer the urge, you're just experiencing it, you stay on the path of traction. You didn't allow yourself to get pulled off and answer the urge. Now, the alternative is to answer the call, answer the urge. Go do the thing that you felt an urge to go do. And that puts you on a path of distraction. And so what's fascinating is that the distraction itself, the thing that is calling your attention, trying to pull, or it's there and it's trying to pull your attention away, or you feel an urge to go do that thing, that's the proximate cause of why you are on the path you are on, whether it's traction or distraction. The root cause is your response to that urge, to that pull, to that thing that is sort of enticing in that moment, right? So the root cause is internal. It is that moment of you either answer the urge to go engage with a distraction, or you do not answer the urge. And that is not easy. It sounds really simple, but actually it's tough to do that at first. And once you practice it, it's like a muscle and you just get better and better at it. But at first, when you actually start to have this awareness and you feel an urge to go do something and you decide and you just sit there. And I'm not talking about using a bunch of willpower to like close your eyes and barrel through the urge. Like, no, I'm going to stay focused. Go. Like that internal attitude or that state that you take on is not actually helpful in terms of producing lasting change in terms of how you show up and operate. It's always so challenging to show up and operate and exercise that willpower. That's a finite resource. You will hit walls and you will let yourself down at certain points because it's not addressing the root cause. What would be addressing the root cause is actually allowing the urge. And when I say allowing the urge, I really mean like think about when you said on your calendar, you were going to sit down and work on this very important thing. And time comes to do it and you for sure don't feel like doing it, right? So you don't feel like doing it. And instead you'll notice in a very sneaky way, your brain will come up with distractions because it's easier and you just don't want to do the thing in front of you. It's so much easier to go get a snack or to look up something on the internet that you've been all of a sudden pop back in your mind. You've been meaning to do it for weeks. And right now it feels really important to do that. Whatever it is, there's going to be some call, this urge inside to pull away from the thing that you said you were going to do. And that is where your power lies. And if you just stay with it and you don't answer the urge, And you don't just fight, like shove it down and do the task at hand anyway. You just sit there for a moment and you allow the urge to really like fully run its course internally and feel what it feels like. We shut off because it's uncomfortable to feel what that feels like, that urge, to experience the urge. And it's discomfort. And so, what's interesting, a quote that I love by Nir Eyal is that if distraction costs us time, then time management is discomfort management. And that is something that when I read that, it was said so concisely, and that's such a great way of saying it. I am in love with it. So I'm going to say it again for you. If distraction costs us time, then time management is actually discomfort management. And that is the truth. Because if you sit there with the urge, and as uncomfortable as it is, I mean, sometimes the way that I had it described to me once, and it resonates so well with me, it almost feels like your skin's on fire. Like your skin is just like burning, itching. Like you need to it's like this impulsiveness that you are allowing to run its course inside of you, and you don't answer it is this very uncomfortable feeling at first. I will say at first, because the more you practice this, the less that the intensity will go away. You'll be very used to, it's like retraining your brain, literally. And so when you experience this, it's almost, for me, the word that comes up, if I really allow whatever that emotion is, it's just a very uncomfortable feeling inside. If I just sit there and really allow it and don't go answer it, and I don't just barrel through the work, I really just allow it and don't answer it, that it almost feels like a reverberation inside of my body. Like there's some vibration in my body that's extremely uncomfortable and I want to get away from it, but you don't. You just sit with it. And that is discipline to do that. It takes an awareness and it takes discipline. And then once you experience it, you let it pass naturally, and then you engage again in the activity that you had planned to do, the thing that is keeping you on the course of traction, right? Okay, to help you have more awareness, I thought it would be helpful to talk about your brain will automatically default to certain factors or behaviors. And so I thought it would be helpful to cover those. One is avoiding boredom. And I'll go back to these in just a second. One is avoiding boredom. One is to look for the things that will go wrong or have gone wrong. One is to ruminate in a very indulgent way. And the last is for your brain to resort to what it's familiar with or comfortable with. Even if it's not in your best interest, it's just comfy. I've heard my coach always used to frame this in a way where she would say, listen, your brain is always going to tell you, because this is way we're wired from way back. Your brain is always going to tell you that's a terrible idea. Don't exert extra effort for it. Stay in your cave and eat your food and go to sleep. And this is just safer. This is just a better way to live. Like that's what your brain will tell you to do. And as funny as that sounds, that is exactly what happens. It has its own flavor, its own spin in today's modern world, but that is exactly what happens. And so these 4 factors, this default way that your brain will operate in, you've got to recognize them, because that is the key. If you can start to just wake up to, that's just my brain and what it's wired to do. I am going to exert some control here and make a different decision than just the default. Okay, so going back to dig into the defaults a little bit. So the first one is avoiding boredom. There is a quote in Nir Eyal's book, Indistractable. He's mentioning a study that has been done for an article. And I am getting to the page right now. Okay, so in this study that's being referenced, the authors conclude the paper by saying people prefer doing to thinking, even if what they are doing is so unpleasant that they would normally pay to avoid it. The untortured mind does not like to be alone with itself. Now, if that sounds ridiculous to you, I want to tell you, I see this all the time with the attorneys I work with, and not because they're lazy or weird. It is the default pattern. And so when I'm working with them and they kind of wake up to this, they start to shift out of it. And so much changes for them when they do. But what I mean by this is attorneys will typically, because you're so busy, I mean, you're spread thin. You are busy being a lawyer and you happen to own your own firm and you know you should be spending more time on the business and implementing these systems and processes or these programs and products that you've previously purchased and you never implemented, like all this information that you have and you haven't done anything with. It is so easy to make excuses for why that's happened. But truthfully, when you sit down, it takes thought. It takes a lot of brain power to decide and to think through and to map out how you're going to implement what you've learned or what you've decided to do into your practice. So if someone's selling you a blueprint, I hate the word blueprints because there's no such thing, but if someone's selling you a blueprint for something or selling you some information, then it seems like, well, I have the information. It's be so easy to just implement. And it's not that it's not easy, but there's a bridge that you have to do with your own brain. You have to sit down and plan out how that's going to get implemented and what that's going to look like inside of your firm. And people don't do it because it requires you to sit and to think, like produce with your own brain instead of just going through the motions and being busy with the things that you already know how to do and you can do with your eyes closed. And you can stay busy all day long with that stuff. And it's weird because it kind of feels productive, but you aren't actually achieving results. And I'm telling you, the people who are the most successful, they take time to think, to do nothing but think for their business and their life, right? To think about, what have I consumed? What content, what information have I consumed? And how does that look for me and for my world and for my firm? And they really use their brain and think. These are also the people who make a ton of money off of other people because they do that hard work and most people won't. They don't know how to do it for themselves. It's not that people aren't willing to do it. They just are not awake to what is actually happening. And their brain is just on default mode and they don't see that they're kind of in that trap or in that cycle. And it feels there's a reward, there's a payoff because of how busy you feel and how productive you feel. So it's so fascinating when I saw this, that, this is, in this book, he gives it as one of the factors. This is one of the things I work on with people is you don't want to, it's almost like avoiding boredom. You would rather, instead of just sit and use your brain and like really power up your brain for use for you and for your firm, you would rather just stay busy doing something because that is way easier, way more comfortable, way more familiar. And it allows you it prevents boredom. And the reason I'm saying it prevents boredom is because when you sit down to use your brain, like to think instead of do, right? There is this space, this liminal space where it's kind of hard to get into the mode of thinking. I have episodes called Super Thinking, part 1 and part 2, where I talk about this, how you should think for your practice. And so people don't want to sit down to do that. There is this like liminal space where the mind is bored. It's like you're getting into the mode of directing it. And before it's on the path of being directed, that uncomfortable space of like, no, it's just more productive to go do. Instead of, no, this is way more valuable than just going and crushing things like I normally do. This is more valuable to sit here and let my mind sort of find its way and be directed towards using my brain to think for my business. And so that's when people sit down to do things, they feel urges to go, like if they make a date with themselves on the calendar to sit down and think through something that's really important, that's going to take a lot of brain power because no one else can do it. You are the one that could do it. You have some information, you have some ideas, and to really think through what that looks like being integrated into the practice and all the things that need to be accomplished and how you're going to get it done and who's going to help you and blah, 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 all the things. That requires a lot of brain power. And your brain is not just going to like saunter into that. Like that's not how that works. So when you sit down to do it, you'll feel an urge to go look up something on the computer or check your phone or go get a snack or fill in the blank, right? And so that is just this stuff is so crazy. Isn't this stuff cool? I mean, I hope you're with me here. This stuff is cool. To wake up to this is cool because then you can actually start to be aware and shift. Okay, another default behavior of our brain, or another default sort of rut for our brain, is this negative bias that we have a tendency towards. We look for things that aren't going right, or why things won't work, or et cetera, just this negative bias. And what is interesting is that the opposite of this, which is important and useful to exercise, is in deliberately looking for what's going well and what's going right and what the possibilities are. So when you deliberately look for that, you sort of open up the world in your own brain, which is fantastic. Another default behavior is this indulgent rumination, just ruminating on things instead of purposeful reflection. So when you ruminate on things, it's sort of similar. Like you can kind of get caught up in that negative bias loop. Why you could beat yourself up with it. I should have done better. It's like unuseful thought loops that sort of keep you spinning and off of the path of traction. It is a distraction, right? And so when your brain wants to go that way, it's very important to recognize it and realize that, like, okay, this is not a problem. This is just what my brain does, but I'm going to choose like the opposite would actually be helpful here, which is purposeful reflection. Like what could I have done differently? That's a good takeaway, right? What went well? What went right? How can you ruminate on, if you're going to ruminate for your possibilities, not for things that you're like wishing that the past had gone differently or wishing that things were different in the moment. Like that's very unuseful. So if you're going to ruminate forward. Think forward with possibilities for yourself. And then there's this last sort of default rut way of operating that your brain has, which is looking for and sticking with the familiar or the comfortable, even if it's not on the path of traction, right? It's keeping you stuck, so to speak. And if you have an awareness that this is a default pattern, then you can notice when you're doing that. You can notice when the way this comes out when I'm working with clients is that they don't want to change. They are so resistant to change. And this is why they feel safe with the comfortable and with the familiar. And so noticing when that might be coming up for you, and you can realize when that is preventing you from being on the path of traction, right? So all of these, like these default ways, are ways to put yourself on a path of distraction. So now, how do you make sure that you put yourself on a path of traction? Like how can you start to wake up and shift so that you are less and less and less on the path of distraction and more and more on the path of traction? Remember, this is progress, not perfection. There is nobody on this planet that is constantly on traction and never in the path of distraction. So don't set that bar for yourself. That's not helpful. That's not useful. But we do want to head in that direction. So if you want to sort of be a master over distractions that can pop up, you have to master dealing with the discomfort of the urge by experiencing in any given instance the urge to abandon the effort that you planned to exert. Just experience it without answering it. A great way to do this is before you sit down to do focused work, or before you hit your week, or before you hit anything meaningful, your week, a meeting, something that you're going to work on really hard. I don't know, like before you want to be focused and you want to be on a path of traction, you have to just decide that you're going to look for the urges that come up, and you're going to look for the discomfort that happens inside that makes you want to answer the urge. You got to just look for it, be open to it, because usually our brains, there isn't even hardly a beat between we feel an urge and we answer it. So you have to start just feeling the urge, getting used to looking for that urge to happen, because it's going to happen, and then just sit with it. So you got to be open to looking for it. I would say that first. So sort of remind yourself at the top of whatever you're doing, hey, I'm going to experience urges to go do something else or to pull me out of what I'm going to do. So, okay, let's like be super open to when I experience that and just sit and notice it. And so that's the second piece, notice it, to be really curious about that discomfort that's behind the urge, because it's always a feeling, always, always, always. It might be a feeling of anxious or anxiety. It might be a feeling of being incompetent. It might be feeling hungry. It might be feeling bored. It might be feeling restless. It might be feeling stuck. Whatever it is, like notice what the feeling is. What is that discomfort? What is behind the discomfort? And just take stock and write it down. That's something else that people that I work with that write this stuff down, they get it way faster, way faster. It's like they can shift way faster because it's getting out of their head and onto paper, which kind of takes it out of this, it can feel messier in your mind. And so if you can write down what the feeling is and what the urge, what the urge is to go do what, right? And what is the discomfort behind that urge? Like describe it. Then you can get to know it and you can identify it way sooner, way faster, all the time. So you just explore it, be curious about it and explore it. You can write down the feeling and you can write down any sensations that you notice that kind of accompany the feeling. And this really does increase your awareness. The other thing I'm going to offer here that this will only help if you have awareness. So what I just said is really important. Like you have to wake up to acknowledge the discomfort and sort of dig into that and get curious about it. And then once you do that, there's something else you can try that I loved that Nirael had said. I tried this last night and a couple times last week when I thought of it, and it was great. I loved it. But basically, I talk a lot about delaying gratification, and one of the ways that he talks about delaying gratification, he doesn't use that word as delaying gratification, but when I feel an urge to do something, so for instance, I know I need to go to bed by a certain time because I need to get sleep. And if I feel an urge to watch the next episode of a Netflix show, I say, okay, and I can, but I have to wait 10 minutes. And by the time 10 minutes, I'm 2 minutes in, I'm like, I'm going to bed. I don't have time for this. So whatever the urge is, you can tell yourself you can have that thing, whether it's an unhealthy food, whether it is checking your phone, whether it's going to search for something on the internet. You're supposed to be doing something else. You feel an urge to go do a distraction, to take you on the path of distraction. And you say to yourself, all right, you can have that, but wait 10 minutes. And usually by the time 10 minutes comes around, you're well beyond that urge. And so that's kind of an interesting approach too, that's been really useful for me. And I'm hoping that passing that along to you, it'll be useful to you too. That is all I've got for you today. And this episode, I realize, is a lot just to let roll around in your brain, but there are some actionable things. The actionable things are that you've got to wake up and get to know yourself. You have got to wake up and notice when you are experiencing an urge towards distraction and explore it. I'm telling you, if you do this, it sounds fluffy, but if you do this, you become so much better at staying focused and on the path of traction because it's not as hard. It's almost like a muscle you have to flex. You really do have to retrain your brain that like, nope, that's not what we're doing. We're going to do this instead. It's almost like not answering the emotion or the discomfort, just allowing the discomfort to be there. Eventually, the discomfort does not ping you as hard. It dissipates. It's just not as big of a deal. And so then it's way easier to stay on traction. But you really do have to wake up to this. So my best advice is to really be willing to and remind yourself really consistently to look for those moments, to look for those things that are pulling you and just stop and explore it and be super curious about it. Like, what is the feeling? Like, if I don't go answer it, if I don't go check my phone, if I don't go get a snack, if I don't watch the next episode, if I don't take that phone call, if I don't look up this thing, if I just sit here, what internal state do I experience and explore that? Because for me, it's almost like this vibration. It's almost, I said earlier, a reverberation. That is what it feels like. It's subtle, but it feels like it's hard to sit with it. And the more I sit with it and the more I have practiced this over time, I don't experience it all that much anymore. Sometimes I do, and sometimes it's intense. But day to day, week to week, it's so much easier to stay on task. It's so much easier to stay on point because I've practiced this so much. And so I encourage you to do the same, is to get very curious. Write down the feeling that's associated with that discomfort. Like discomfort is a feeling, but like why? What is uncomfortable? Is it anxiety? Is it incompetence? Is it hunger? Is it boredom? Is it restlessness? Is it stuckness? Like you don't know the next thing to do. And so it's hard to just sit with it. So whatever it is, write it down, and you can write down any sensations you notice. So maybe there's something in the pit of your stomach. Maybe you are feeling jittery. Maybe like me, it's sort of this vibration inside. Maybe like someone else had told me, it feels like their skin is on fire, their skin is burning, or like itchy, like they just have to get up. They're crawling out of their own skin, so to speak. So whatever it is for you, do it. And then the second thing that you can also practice is delaying gratification by just 10 minutes, and notice what that does for you. That's what I got for you today, guys. Thank you for sticking with me. And I hope that me loving to geek out on this stuff is useful to you in some way. I know it is for the clients I work with in the sprints and privately, but I hope that on the podcast it translates through as well. This stuff really is the key. This is the key. I can give you all kinds of information. I can give you all kinds of things to implement. But the truth is, if you aren't in tune with this, you will always sell yourself short. You will always be on this like subpar path for yourself, and you won't ever really see what you're capable of. And that's true for any information that you purchase or get out there, whether it's from a book or from a program or from a product or from a coach. Whatever information you get, whatever sort of inputs you receive that you want to translate into your own world, this is the key to getting them to translate into your own world, because it's so easy to just leave them on the shelf or to keep saying, someday I'm going to get to that. And this is why it's so uncomfortable to honor what you say you're going to do, because of this, all the stuff we just talked about. And there's advanced conversations with this, but this is at its most basic level. This is it. I hope you enjoy it. All right, everyone, I will see you here next week. Hi guys, it's me again. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, you probably understand that growth requires results, not just staying active. If you want to learn how to build your days around getting results, I'll show you how in this zero fluff class that I teach. Go to velocitywork.com/results for registration information. I cannot wait to see you there. If you want to hang out with us on social, come on over to Instagram. Our handle is velocity.work. And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/meetvelocitywork. Cheers, my friends, to real growth and a great life. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.